An act becomes immoral for us because it comes to symbolize or stand for other similar acts and thereby becomes a member of the abstract category bad or wrong or evil. That is, morality is rooted in both our capacities to symbolize and to generalize to a level of categorical abstraction. A person, once symbolized, has done more than stolen a particular piece of, say, meat. He has become a thief. He has become an instance or token of the category thief. Similarly, for humans, the piece of meat is not just a particular possession, but an instance of the class of things called property, which has associated rights. Once taken, it is stolen property that just happens to be a piece of meat. Once symbolized, individual acts and things can become instances of classes of events or classes of things that are good or evil, acceptable or unacceptable, sanctioned or not. Consider again the concrete, non-abstract, non-symbolic mind of a tiger. How does he regard the bone that he's gnawing on right now? It's his because he has it, not because it is his property or his in some other abstract or symbolic sense. If a bigger tiger comes along and takes the bone away from him, the smaller tiger might get angry and hiss or growl, but he cannot think, the big tiger has my property, or I own that bone regardless of who has it now. He can think, the big tiger has a bone that I had and I want that bone back. In contrast, I can own an object regardless of who has it now. This is because I and other members of my society can place a representation of me along with a representation of the object in question in a common representation held in working memory. A tiger can't do this. Nor can any other animal besides humans, I suspect, because only we are abstract. If you look at the life of a tiger now, or 10,000 years ago, or 100,000 years ago, it's pretty much the same kind of life, driven by instincts. The same goes for the lives of raccoons, fish, octopuses, hippos, and even chimpanzees. But human lives now are radically different from human lives 10,000 years ago, or 100,000 years ago. This is because we have been freed from instinct. This has afforded the possibility of guiding action, not by instincts and first-order desires, such as thirst and lust, but also second-order desires, such as wanting to become a certain kind of person. Moreover, we can pass on bodies of second-order aims. This is the domain of culture. We can pass on a corpus of ideas to the next generation. Our children can then adopt and modify these ideas and make them their own. But how did we as a species become freed from instincts? How did we come to be guided by cultural norms and bodies of second-order aims, such as the ones we call culture, religion, and morality? I think part of the story again lies in these massive frontal lobes of ours. They permitted forms of self-governance that are not open to a tiger or even a chimpanzee. Let me give a couple of examples. There's an experimental paradigm in science called reverse contingency reward. If I offer you two desirable things in one hand and only one in the other hand, and you can only choose one hand, you'll probably take the hand that has more. But if you do that, I'll give you the contents of the other hand. For example, if I offer a chimp two grapes in one hand and one grape in the other, it'll reach for two grapes, in which case I'll give it one grape with the other hand. What's very interesting is that chimps always reach for more. They seem to be unable to override the prepotency of the food stimulus. A small child, in contrast, can override the impulse to always reach for more. If I offer a child two candies or one, most children will initially reach for two, in which case they would get one. But typically, children will see that there's something strange about this and then try reaching for one candy, in which case they'll receive two candies. This really sets us apart from a chimp, who cannot inhibit the ancient programming to reach for more. Interestingly, if I remove the food stimulus and instead show a chimp two dots in one hand and one dot in the other hand, then they can learn to touch one dot in order to receive two grapes. So there's something about the prepotency of the food stimulus that leads to them automatically reaching for more. Our minds are different from that of a chimp in that we can override the prepotency of the stimulus. Here's another example. The scientist Daniel Povinelli taught chimps and children to make a cylindrical block lying on a table upright. When they did this, they'd get a reward. Chimps and children will do this again and again to get a reward. Then he made the bottoms of the cylinder a bit slanted. Now, when the cylinder was made upright, it would fall over. Chimps would try to make it upright over and over and over again without success. Small children, in contrast, would do this a few times and then pick up the cylinder and look at its bottom to figure out what was going on. Unlike a chimp, we had a kind of internal model about how the cylinder should behave, and since the cylinder was misbehaving, either there had to be something wrong with the cylinder to explain its strange behavior, or there had to be something wrong with our world model. This reveals something very fundamental about the human mind and its difference from the mind of a tiger or dog or even a chimp. Whereas other animals are concrete, meaning that they model the world as it is, we're abstract. In addition to seeing how the world concretely is, we have an invisible world model riding on top of this concrete world. In this world model, we can model how cylinders should behave, and we can model how we should behave. This is the world model where second-order goals can arise. Because other animals largely lack this more abstract world model, they lack second-order goals, like wanting to become a different kind of animal in the future. And because they lack these, they lack morality. They're neither moral nor immoral. They are amoral. We human beings, however, are moral beings because we can model how we want to be and strive to make that vision a reality. In fact, we typically cannot help having this abstract model of the world and of ourselves riding on top of the concrete world of things as they now are. In this sense, we have no choice but to have free will. We are, in a sense, damned to be free. Unlike a tiger or a dog, we can see not only how things now are, we can see how they could be and how they should be.